for joining us for our Chamber Connection podcast. Thanks to our friends at Speakeasy, we are here for the next 52 weeks, bringing you guests from around our community, elected officials, business owners, folks doing great work here in Macomb County. So, sit back, take a listen, and we hope you'll join us every week for our Chamber Connection. Hi, thanks for joining us for this edition of the Chamber Connection. My name is Stacy Ziarko. I'm the president and CEO of the Sterling Heights Regional Chamber of Commerce. Thanks for joining us today, and my guest is my friend, Phil Gilchrist, the executive director of the Anton Art Center in Mt Clemens, Michigan. Hi, Phil.
Good morning.
Thanks for being here. I love the Anton Art Center. I call it the most hidden gem that we have in the county. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and then tell us a little bit about the center.
Sure. So my name is Phil. I've been the executive director at the Anton Art Center for about 6.5 years now, if you can believe that.
I cannot.
I mean, like a third of that was in a pandemic, so it both flew by and took 10 years. But, I've worked at the Art Center for more than a dozen years at this point, and have been going there my entire life. So it's been a fun journey for me to end up there as its executive. The Anton Art Center itself has been around for more than 50 years at this point. We're in a historic Carnegie Library facility.
It's such a cool building.
It is. It's neoclassical in design for any architecture buffs out there, and has a lot of really unique elements and architectural details that are fun to take a look at. It was built in 1904 and entirely paid for initially by Mr. Carnegie himself. The library stayed there for 65 years. In the end, it was like 1969, the library had finished building a new facility around the corner, and they moved out. At that time, there was a group of women, our founding mothers that we call them, who belonged to a local art club, the Mt Clemens Art Association. And they lobbied the city for use of that building to open an art center where they could host art exhibits and have classes for the community. The city commission really liked that idea and ended up voting unanimously in June of that year to allow the Art Association to take over that space. So in the late 1969, the Art Association came in and they started doing this slate of renovations where they were preparing the interior to be an art gallery and starting to build out the classroom spaces in the lower level. So they opened later that year. They had their first exhibit in early 1970, which they actually borrowed from the Detroit Institute of Arts. It was called Mother and Child. It was a really
fitting
nice...
for having the founding mothers.
Yes, absolutely. And so, from that point forward, the rest is kind of history. We've been there ever since with these great art exhibits, both featuring local artists from Mt. Clemens, from Macomb County more broadly, and even regional and statewide art exhibits at times. And we continue to offer this to this day a full slew of art classes in different media. Ceramics has been exceptionally popular. Everybody loves to come in and get their hands a little dirty. But we have painting classes, we have kids classes in mixed media and drawing, also kids classes in clay. And so we really try and have a lot of different opportunities for people to exercise their own creativity.
The building, though, just got a great, cool award this year, didn't it?
Yeah. So I'll back it up just a little bit. In
Sure.
the late 1970s, the management at the Art Center, it was called at the time, had managed to get a state historic register listing. And so we've got one of those big green plaques out in front of the building that explains some of the history of the facility and how the Art Center came to be. But it was around our 50th anniversary years, 2018, I think I started the process to see about getting a National Historic Register nomination. And flash forward 4 years now, and we were able to obtain that designation. And so now the historic Carnegie Library in downtown Mt. Clemens is also a National Register listed location, which is really exciting.
And there aren't many of those in the state of Michigan.
I think that in the state of Michigan there are, I'm not sure the exact count, so I don't want to speak to that, but in Macomb County there is only a handful. Mt. Clemens now has 2. The other is the Michigan Transit Museum, the old train station that's on Cass Avenue right by the railroad tracks.
What a cool designation for the museum. So tell us about some of the exhibits that you have had in the past, and then maybe what's coming up, later on this year.
Sure. So a couple of my favorites that I like to talk about every year, and this one's already passed for the current year, but you can look forward to it next January and February. the Michigan Annual Exhibit. It's a statewide art competition. It's open to artists over the age of 18 across the state of Michigan. It is usually one of our most highly sought after exhibits in terms of artists who are trying to enter the show.
Yeah.
It's always highly competitive, and the work is always top notch. Jurors are usually a bit more high profile. In the past, we've had DIA Director Salvador Salorpons as a judge. We've had George Nanamdi of the Nanamdi Contemporary Art Center in Detroit as a judge, among many, many other very distinguished artists and arts administrators. And so that one's always a lot of fun.
So when you put out a call for something like that exhibit, how many entries do you get, and then how many go into the exhibit?
Sure. So as an example, this is kind of an extreme example, but when Salvador was the judge, we got over 300 entries for that exhibit.
Okay.
Typically, only about 50 artworks will be accepted.
Okay.
That's about how much space we have, depending on the size of the artworks, to physically display things. And so, that was a really a banner year in terms of art entries. That was a lot. Usually we might get 150 to 175 for that same exhibit. Other shows that are always really popular are our annual student, secondary student show and our biennial primary student show. Both of those exhibits are on display this year, and we usually get around 700 to 800 artworks entered from students across Macomb County. These shows are open to any student at all. You don't have to be enrolled in a public school. You can be in a parochial school or other private school, a charter school. You can even be homeschooled. If you are a student, you are eligible one way or another. And so we've got our secondary student show up right now with the primary student show right around the corner here. Both of those exhibits are being sponsored by Extra Credit Union, which has been great support for these exhibits and helpful for us to help get the word out too. Parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, everybody loves to come and see, their kids or their grandkids or nephews, nieces' artwork up on the walls.
Absolutely. One of my favorite things that the Anton Art Center does every year is your holiday market. While it's sunny outside today, snow and Christmas will be here before we know it. Great place to find local artisan gifts. So you celebrate Christmas all year long, though, because you're constantly working on this project. So tell us a little bit about that project and what that means to the center, too.
Sure. It does feel like we work on it all year round. It is a, excuse me, it is a really significant effort and one of our primary opportunities for artists in the area to earn some income for themselves. Each year we open up the market in mid-November, right before Thanksgiving, and it runs through the end of December. Basically, it is a big it's not an art fair exactly, right? But we bring in work on consignment from over 100 artists from around southeastern Michigan every year, and we put that art out on display in our gallery spaces. The entire main level of the Art Center turns into this fantastic holiday shopping experience. Yeah. And I want to say we had over 10,000 inventory items that we brought in this past year. Artists earn 60% of the sale price. And so, we were able to sell in this past year about $50,000 worth of inventory. And so artists receive 60% of that total. That's money right in their pockets.
With the lack of art fairs and art shows over the last couple of years due to the pandemic, this is huge for our local artisans.
It really is.
So, and I think the other part, you rely on a lot of volunteers for that project too, don't you?
We sure do. One year I calculated more than 2,000 volunteer hours that go into that effort from start to finish. But it's a lot, from the early days when we're taking the entries from artists, which if there's any artists watching, that's usually in July. So keep your eyes and ears open for that opportunity. But we do all of our artwork intake in October, all of the setup, which is really extensive. We have a lot of furniture and fixtures we have to move around.
It's beautiful inside, though. It is absolutely stunning when you walk in.
Yeah. I often describe it, and maybe this isn't necessarily a good way to describe it, but it's almost an overwhelming experience. To walk in there for the sheer amount of things that you see. And part of the joy of it is that there's a lot of changeover in terms of the items themselves. All of these things are handmade. And so you might miss an opportunity if you go in there and you see something that you really like, but I don't know, I want to think about it a little bit. If you come back later, it might be
wait
gone.
on it.
Yeah. But we'll replenish our inventory as well. And so there's always something new or different. And you can come back 3, 4, 5 times throughout that course of the market and see some things that weren't there the last time or that you may not have noticed.
So you brought up something and you talked about that you've been with the Art Center 6.5 years, half of those in a pandemic. Like everybody else, the Art Center had to make some changes when you couldn't have people coming into the building, you weren't having in-person classes, but you still found ways to connect with the community. So share a little bit about how you guys, between you and your staff and your volunteers, really kept that connection to the community.
Sure. So in the early days of the pandemic, like so many other organizations, we made a quick shift to virtual programming. We're a pretty small organization, and we're really, in some ways, we can be really flexible, right?
It helps.
It really does help. We're a small bureaucracy. And so almost immediately, within a week after everything shut down in 2020, we were able to turn around and launch an international online art exhibit. And we got some 1,500 entries from literally around the world. And it was an electronic display. So everything went up on our website into a gallery there. And it was just a really incredible experience for us to be able to share our platform with artists who all of a sudden didn't have platforms at all. All of the galleries had been shut down. There weren't any art centers. There weren't any museums operating at that time. And the entire art world had this lack of a way or a place to showcase what they're doing in this moment. And it was a really powerful and moving thing for us to be able to help support.
Absolutely.
So that was the first and biggest way that we were able to keep connected with the arts community and with our own community. Moving forward from that, we did a lot of online videos with art instructional content. Those are all still on our YouTube channel, and we've been producing that kind of content since then. Good. We were able to purchase some new equipment, bone up on our skills for video production, which was quite a learning curve.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, but it's been fun to build those skills, to learn some new things that help us to enable our programming and further our mission to enrich and inspire people of all ages through the arts.
Well, I think a lot of people found some creativity during the pandemic, whether that, one of my team members and I had discussion over, she tried to make banana bread 10 different ways. I got more involved in hobbies that I have that, maybe I don't have as much time for. So you hope more people followed along to your videos, but then continued that now into their post-pandemic life because they really picked up an outlet that they very much enjoy.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that? Are you seeing more people in classes and more people kind of showing that outlet?
Yeah, people had a lot of free time over the last couple of years. And so it was a prime opportunity to explore some new things and try out your own creativity. And a lot of people really did get into trying those things. And yes, we have seen a lot of new students interested in particularly our clay classes.
Okay.
But, there's not a lot of places where a ceramic setup can be kind of pricey and complicated to do yourself at home unless you've got a level of experience. But if you can find a place to go that has everything that you need, all of the equipment, the space, and the materials, and there's not that many of those around, so we're kind of a captive audience, I guess. But
so about with the ceramics classes, how does that work? Is it a weekly series? Is it something that if they want to take home a finished product, what does that look like?
So our ceramics, as well as many of our other classes, are typically 6 to 8 weeks long. It's usually a 1 3-hour class session each week where you can go in, work on some things, learn some new things, see some demonstrations. And by the time that class, the 6 or 8 week period is finished, you should have some kind of finished product. Excuse me. Ceramics can be a bit tricky to learn. It's really, you really have to get in touch with your fine motor control to get good at it. But with all of our classes, the goal is to be able to provide enough instruction and skill and support to our students that they can create something, between the beginning of the class and the end of that session.
And what are the ages for classes? Do you have children's classes, adult classes?
We have classes for nearly all ages. Currently, most of our classes are for ages 5 and up, though we do have some public programming and other art making opportunities for the younger folks as well. One of those is our Super Sat Art Day program, which has been running in June on the second Saturday every year. And we set up all kinds of art activities and performances, a lot of interactive experiences for our community to come on in at no charge and have some fun and try some things out.
So the Anton Art Center is right in the hub of downtown Mt Clemens. You have been there over 50 years now. You've seen the city change in many different ways. What's going on down there now? There's a lot of hullabaloo. There's a lot of new things coming to town. So talk about how the center kind of fits into all of that.
Sure. Yeah. There's been a lot of talk about downtown Mt Clemens lately, right? I'd love to think that the Art Center played a really significant part in that. There's not any real direct evidence, but
I think it does.
Well, for the sake of conversation, right? But, one of the ways that the Art Center really does fit in there is not just being an anchor arts institution in the downtown core, but by helping to beautify and provide programming and projects. Here's an example. In 2018, we worked with Advancing Macomb, and we obtained a grant that allowed us to paint some murals in downtown Mt Clemens. We painted one on the riverfront steps with an artist named Wendy Popko, who I think
good friend of the city of Sterling Heights
knows very well. Yes, we had a mural that was painted on the side of one of our restaurants. It's all about the history of the city of Mt Clemens and has some really interesting key points. That was painted by a local duo, mother and daughter duo, Angelica and a lot of wines. And we had some volunteers work with us as well for a couple of smaller painted installations that are interactive, a hopscotch over at the Macomb Family YMCA, and then some picture frames on the cement in front of the Anton Art Center building. And we keep sidewalk chalk out there so people can draw in their own pictures to these frames. It's a lot of fun. So projects like that help to provide an impetus for people to come into the city, right? Those are the kinds of things that people are interested to see. And it's been a lot of fun to watch people, especially like with that history mural. They're going over there and taking all kinds of photos, and you can see some of what people are doing to interact with these pieces as they're posting it online, on their Instagram or on their Facebook page. So that's always really a lot of fun.
How important is public art to a community?
Well, in my own opinion, it is exceptionally important. I've been really encouraged. So, the Macomb County has a lot of art going on.
We do.
Even though there's not a lot of arts organizations here. And so it's been very fascinating to learn more about where's the art coming from, who's doing this programming. And Sterling Heights actually is one of the two municipalities in Macomb County with the longest history of supporting the arts. And Sterling Heights has had an arts commission since the 60s. So for about as long as the city of Mount Clemens.
I'm a former arts commissioner too.
Oh, that's fantastic. I actually think that the Arts Commission is a little bit older than the Art Center is in Mount Clemens. But since that time, there's been this kind of slow increase in visibility for the arts here. And now all of a sudden in the last few years, there's really been a sharp increase in the number of public art programs. Like Sterling Heights has been doing public art for a number of years, but now we also have public art popping up in Harrison Township. I've seen Macomb Township do a couple of public art projects. There's other places like Warren and St. Clair Shores that are looking at public art. And even back in Mount Clemens, there's another organization that's been organizing temporary sculptural displays that get rotated out on an annual basis. And so there's a lot more that's happening now that people can see and appreciate and enjoy for themselves. That's just, I don't know, there's been a lot that's happening now that didn't seem to be happening previously.
And I think in a lot of cases, we're finding artists that either live in these communities, have roots in these communities, but it's a placemaking. It allows people to have places to go, like you talked about, coming to downtown Mt Clemens, putting those pictures on Instagram, getting people out there from a destination standpoint. It's done a lot of great things for these communities. I look forward to watching more of it come up. I mean, I think it's super important. And from a business standpoint, like when you put a mural on the side of a business, people are attracted to that, to attend that, come to that restaurant, come to that store, just to check it out at the same time. It brings some good visibility to not only our arts and our downtowns, but our business community at the same time.
You're absolutely right.
So talk a little bit about, too, what the Art Center has planned for the rest of 2022. Sure.
So we are finalizing our remaining exhibit schedule for this year. There's a couple of really nice exhibits that are going to be coming up, including one in June in celebration of Pride Month, we're hosting an exhibit with a group called Mighty Real Queer Detroit.
Okay.
It's actually going to be a collaborative exhibit with 15 galleries throughout southeastern Michigan, featuring more than 100 queer and queer-identified artists who have some kind of ties to the city of Detroit.
Awesome.
So it's the largest exhibit of LGBTQ identifying artists in this area that I think has ever been put together. The organizer is a gentleman named Patrick Burton, and we're really looking forward to bringing some of that artwork. We're the only Macomb County participating gallery, but we're very proud and very excited to be hosting that exhibit in June. We're working with our Idea Council, which our Idea Council is focused on inclusivity, diversity, equity, and access. IDEA, the acronym there. And we're working with them to curate an exhibit of artists of color for our July timeframe as well. After that point, we'll have, I'm poorly prepared. I'm sorry. I don't remember what exhibit comes after that, but there'll be one more exhibit prior to everything changing over for the holiday market. That last exhibit that I can't remember is going to also be on display during our annual Art Party fundraising event, which will be late September. And that's, as always, going to be a beautiful outdoor, under a tent, not gala exactly, but a nice party to support the arts, to celebrate the impacts that the arts have in our community. We'll have some great entertainers that we're lining up this year, as well as a 50-50 raffle, a bunch of restaurants showing off their favorite dishes, and we're going to have all kinds of artists on hand giving demonstrations. And new this year, we're going to have some kind of interactive and participatory art activities for our guests.
Those are my favorite.
Good.
Safe to say, though, that somebody should visit the Anton Art Center throughout the entire year, check out the restaurants in downtown Mt Clemens, but come back. There's always going to be something different.
That's absolutely true. And, admission at the Anton Art Center is always free. Right now, we're open 5 days a week, Tuesday through Saturday. Parking is free on the weekends, if anybody wants to know that. And we're always looking forward to seeing people in our gallery spaces. We're open regularly right now.
Do you do school trips? Do you
Sure.
have school classes and school trips? So if there's educators out there looking to provide a close-to-home opportunity.
Yep. We are more than happy to welcome groups. Field trips are always something that we look forward to. So we encourage people, if you're bringing a group that's a little larger, give us a call ahead of time just so we can know to expect you.
I think for as long as you've been in the county and as long as you've been active in all things Macomb, the Art Center is just such a staple to the historic treasures and to the viability of what we're all doing. I think we always look at a business community, but arts are so important to our culture as well. And they help a thriving business community, which we're seeing right now in downtown Mt Clemens.
Yeah.
Phil, thank you for joining me today. What Phil also fails to mention is that he is an artist himself.
I think I like to say that I'm an occasional artist at this point.
All right. He's an occasional artist. Yes. I'm an occasional crafter. So, I feel like they're two totally different things. But thank you for being here today.
My
thank
pleasure.
you for being a member of the Sterling Heights Regional Chamber of Commerce. I hope that as one of our nonprofit members that you have found value in connecting with us and with our community too. But we're grateful for you. We're grateful to have the Anton Art Center as such a viable part of our community. Artists, get yourself ready for the holiday market. Applications will be coming soon, but just take a walk through. Warm days are coming. Get out there, walk through downtown Mt Clemens, stop in the Art Center, and take in this hidden gem that we've got. So thank you for joining me today. Thank you all for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you the next time on the Chamber Connection. Tuning in to the Chamber Connection. Be sure to check out information on the Sterling Heights Regional Chamber of Commerce website, our Facebook page, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We look forward to you connecting with us and tuning in next time.